me get out of your faces, people. Let's welcome aboard. Where's Pieter Bas Lezenberg from Hansje Brinker? And who here knows about the story of Hansje Brinker if you're not Dutch? You do know the story, people. And he's, maybe I'm stealing your pitch, but he's the kid who sticks his finger in the dike. Right? He's fiction. Oh, he's not real? Okay. Oh. No. Okay, Peter, all yours. We're going to set the clock. Everyone's going to have 5 minutes for a presentation and then 5 minutes for a Q&A. That's your opportunity to engage with the speakers, okay? I'll run around with the microphone and I'll find you. Just raise your hand up. And all speakers, you see this tape here? Don't cross it or else you won't be on TV. Whichever you wish.
I'll take this one. All right, thank you. How do I, yes, that's how I get it on. Okay. This is the problem we're ultimately trying to solve. That's behind me. My name is Pieter Lezenberg. I'm the CEO of Hansje Brinker. We are in the business of infrastructure monitoring. And the problem that I try to illustrate behind me here is an explosion that happened last night in East Harlem, and that claimed the lives of 8 people and destroyed, obviously, a large apartment building. Our customer are the guys that manage the pipelines, the aging pipelines that transport gas into these buildings. They manage a vast network of rapidly aging brittle pipes going into urban infrastructure, and they know typically approximately where the pipeline is, they know approximately how old it is, and they know approximately what kind of material is going in. What they don't know is what's been going on with their pipeline, and that's where we come in. So this is what we do. We give these guys a view, and the color is not really coming through here, but we deliver them an enormous number of measurements, as you can tell here, on millimeter scale, about how their infrastructure is moving. What I'm showing here is a snapshot, basically, not in East Harlem, because that's not a customer of ours, but in the city of Rotterdam. And this is, as a matter of fact, it's above ground pipelines. We can tell of these things how rapidly they're going down into the ground. They're sitting in soft soil, and they're going down into the ground under their own weight, and whatever external disturbances happen as well. So as you can tell, we take several hundred measurements here over very, tens of meters by tens of meters. We get several hundred measurements. The color of the dot that you see here, the color of the measurement, is representative of the average rate at which it's going down into the ground. Okay? Green is good, as it always is, and red is not. Red means you're going down, you got a pipeline that's sinking rapidly and that's creating a lot of stress at certain points, and we don't know where those points are. And we don't know, and our customers don't know, and they would like to know. That's what we do. Now, getting to these measurements, we use. Well, this is just an illustration of how we measure that. Okay, yeah, actually, the reason why I put in this slide is because not everybody in this audience may be familiar with millimeters, you standard types. But let me give you an example of what a millimeter is. We measure with millimeter accuracy, and that's the thickness of this coin, the penny, how fast these pipes are going into the ground, okay? That's how accurately we measure, and we do this based on, there we go, based on satellite imagery. So we typically acquire images of about 80 by 100 kilometers at one go, and we translate that to these deformation measurements. This is another example. This is the city of Amsterdam in its entirety. People, we're measuring 1 billion, or actually in excess of 1 billion measurements of how that city is moving with millimeter accuracy. So it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities of what you can do with these data. We typically sell it to these utilities, but you can do a lot of other things with it as well. I'll give you 2 examples. The first one, if you're in an earthquake country, you want to know when stuff gets shaken around, is it moving afterwards? So do we see any trend changes? That's the first thing I show here. The red line, the continuous line on the upper hand there, after an event in 2006, it comes down rapidly. The next thing we do is we can take these measurements, these hundreds of measurements, and project them, like I do here, onto gas pipelines that are buried underground. So what we wind up with here is a map, and the color does not really show through, but we've highlight actually in this way areas where there might be high stress gradients on underground pipelines. So with that, we're able to really help these utilities. We've been doing this for customers in Holland, in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, actually throughout the entire country. We're launching in the US. Obviously, the Bay Area had a bit of a problem a couple of years ago with the explosion in San Bruno, so there's a high sense of urgency here as well. I'm standing here tonight because we're launching in the US. We already do a lot of business here, but we want to set up, and we're looking for people who feel passionate about joining a team that does math like this and brings it real value to customers that way. On the nose.
Very nice. So what we'll do is we'll just reset this. Okay, so this is the Q&A period. This is interactive time, guys. Who has a question or two? Yes, sir.
What does the utility do with that data? They have all these measuring points, but are they going to dig up the pipes and renew them if there's too much stress on them? What's the model there?
Yeah, they're trying to create safety maps or risk maps, whichever way you want to roll, but they're trying to, well, the image is gone, but they're trying for every asset, for every connecting pipe that goes into either a house or a business, they're trying to assess what's the risk of deformation here, what's the risk that something goes wrong. They pump explosives, essentially, through all this aging network, and they basically want to know where do we need to do maintenance first, and how do we schedule that in a sense that's going to address the high-risk areas first and the lowest areas last. And it's clearly there's a financial incentive there, but as you can see from the first image that I showed you, there's a lot more at stake. So they take this very serious, and they're hungry for data.
Hi. I was wondering, are the utility receptive to your technology? Are they interested in that type of technology, or they are notoriously not interested in implementing new stuff?
These people are obviously they're in the risk management business, and they're very careful about the type of data that they take in. So we work with them to make them sort of assess in a great level of detail where we get this millimeter accuracy and how accurate the measurements are, how reliable, how repeatable, et cetera, et cetera. We're basically signal processing guys at heart. So this is our job. We really understand. And as a matter of fact, we have very long-term monitoring contracts with several of the utilities over in the old country. By the way, guys, I drove here tonight. I live here, so I didn't have to fly over. We're launching here. This is where it's happening. Yes.
So my question is, like, why are you concentrating on pipes? This technology allows for many other applications than only pipes. So is that the choice of yours, or because this is very strong stuff?
Yes. As you can guess from the name, we started out life in let's say water management, dike safety management, and we found that there's one sort of overriding issue that allows us to do a great job, which is we can measure billions of measurement points, but we need to correlate it with against a database of failures. And in dikes, fortunately, there's very few of them. The example I showed of the explosion happening here in Haarlem is a very dramatic example, but let me assure you that the utilities that we work with, on average, I would say, have about 10,000 failures or 10,000 issues that they have to go out for and go on site to inspect what's happening, 10,000 of those per year. So what it enables us to do is to sort of process our data and open up a real sort of the perspective of big data and correlate with failures that we could not in any way do with dike problems because there's so few of them, right? We do have a set of other customers, but we find that we generate the most traction with utilities. So I could stand here and say that we did a pivot, but initially we were really searching for the vertical that would adopt our technology, the most rapidly into their critical business process. And utilities were the one to do so. Yeah.
How are the utilities managing this problem right now, and what gives them the incentive to switch over?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm glad you asked that. So maybe it's best if I give you an example about a local example. After that explosion happened around the corner here in San Bruno, PG&E figured out that with their 6,500 miles of aging pipelines, they needed to know exactly what was going on. So they sent out surveyor teams. These are the guys with the tripods and the prisms and the yellow jackets and the binoculars on top of them to measure these distances, and they took 2 million data points. I have no idea what it cost them, but I have a feeling it was immensely expensive and it took a lot of time. And we do that in an afternoon, right? So we generate billions of data points. So they are eager to incorporate these data points into their business process. And we had to validate, because surveillance the old way with leveling equipment has been around for the better part of what, 300 years, 200 years? I don't know exactly, but it's been around for a while. And we will never put these guys really out of business, but we will be basically building on top of their work. Yep.
Peter, can the utility be empowered to monitor themselves or other third parties, or what's the model like? It's a good question. I don't know exactly the governance model for utilities here in this country. We'll find out. In Holland, there is a governing body that oversees their practices in order to establish that they are conducting safe business practices. And we work closely with these guys because they want to validate our technique as well. So, yeah.
I'm just going to ask one final question.
Yep.
How are you taking measurements if they're not, if the pipes themselves aren't outfitted for, like how are you infiltrating the actual pipes to get measurements way down in the ground?
Okay.
Is that sonar?
Yeah, I didn't make that clear. I can delve
very quick, because we are out of time.
I can delve into radar technology with you, but we measure what's going on at the service level. And so we have to assume that what's happening 5-6 feet underground to these 30-inch pipelines, that there's not that much difference in the top 5 feet, that what's happening with the pipelines is reflected above the surface there. And that assumption in general turns out to be valid. Yep. We cannot penetrate ground yet from space. Maybe one day. All right.
All right. Excellent. Hansje Brinker. Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mars.
Thank you.